All right. So today we got golf professional Brian Jacobs calling in from Florida. Brian, an old friend who I knew back in the day when I was working bag staff at Ridgemont Country Club in Rochester, New York. Um, you are no longer there in Ridgemont. There's been a lot of change over the years. So if you can, just give us a little background on yourself, your history kind of in the golf world, where you've been teaching and where we can find your stuff online, different things like that. Kind of give us your story and your background.
Sure, it's very unique actually. I actually was a school teacher, so I didn't play golf in college. I played football, and I didn't get into the game until I was 30. So I was a health teacher in the inner city of Rochester, and I got asked to coach a middle school golf team. And so I started to fall in love with the game, and then started to work at a club called Midvale, just in their bag room, and I got to play free golf, and we started a caddy program there. And my next year, Locust Hill asked me if I would come over there and run a bigger, more robust caddy program. So we used to take city kids and we taught them a craft, and we made a huge national program, big splash program. But in the same time, I was kind of thinking like, well, maybe I'll get my PGA. I'm typically driven. Whenever I do something, I try to get to the highest level that I can get, and so I challenged myself, and I took the player's ability test, which is basically 36 holes. They put a target score on you on one day, and so I shot 71.67. So I set the section record. No one had ever shot that low in one of them before, and I was just a guy that was just a really good athlete. I played baseball very competitively and was recruited, but I decided to go to play football instead. And so I always had really good dexterity, good hand-eye coordination. And so the whole time I was teaching in the city, I was working at Locust Hill, I was earning my PGA, I was being a dad, getting my master's degree, coaching, teaching. It was crazy. I'd be 4:30 in the morning at the gym and 6:15 or 6:30 at school, and then I'd teach a full day, and then I'd go to the club and I'd work. And I kind of watched the head professionals, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. That's not what I want to do. So I left Locust and I went to Country Club of Rochester, where my job was just to teach and play. That was my best job ever. And I got to hang out with Sam Rosetta, who I don't know if you know that name in the area, but he's legendary. He was unbelievable, head professional, but he also played in the Masters, the British, the Open, as a professional and in the PGA. And so I used to sit and talk with him all the time. And he told me, he goes, "You're not a head professional." He goes, "You're a teacher." He goes, "There's nothing wrong with being a teacher." And the light bulb kind of went off. So I pursued my PGA. I got it done in a year. Most professionals, it takes 8, or 6 or 5, because they kind of drag their feet. To me, it was just getting another master's degree. So it was all the business schools. And then I latched on at Ravenwood, and we ran ESPN golf schools there. And so that's how I got to know Hank Haney. So when Hank Haney was teaching Tiger, I was learning from him at the same time and running schools for him and traveling to New Jersey and back and to Texas and all over the place, learning. Um, and then I started my own brand. I said, this is crazy. I'm working for other people. They're taking high percentages. And so I said, I just want to be me. So I kind of threw out my shingle in, 2008. And I took a job at Ridgemont Country Club as an independent, negotiated a contract for the first time ever. And then post that, I was there a couple years. I wound up at Mill Creek, which I was really happy with. I was there for 10 years. And then I came to Ridgemont right after that. And so right before I was at Ridgemont, I was signed by Golf Channel. And so I was a lead coach for them. I still am. I've been with them for 9 years. So do content
Yeah.
and so I came in from a different perspective, right? I came in from coaching and teaching to golf, and I was a football coach. I was a football guy,
Yeah, that it
and
brings back a lot of
kind of dropped everything for
sure.
golf, which was
You
cool.
brought back a lot of memories now. But you had mentioned that you were football first, and now I remember all this. I remember hearing about this and you telling us stories back in the in the
Yeah.
the bag room there about your old football days and some of the stuff you did
Mhm.
there. So it's all flying back.
Yeah, it's
But
it's good to create that little relationship, right, with all you guys, and so now you're out doing great things, and so when I got the job here at BallenIsles, it was my brand was extremely sustainable. I was doing great, but this was like out of the park kind of home run type of deal. And I mean, this is the top club in the Troon portfolio. We've got 3 golf courses and 16 acres of practice facility, 2 ranges, and almost $2 million building with anything and everything in it. Like
yeah,
when you walk on the property, you think you died, like and
sure.
went to heaven. It's crazy.
Gotcha. Now, why did they choose you?
It's really funny. I mean, I've elevated up to a top 100, and then a teacher to watch, and then I think a lot of the times too, when you get awarded that kind of thing, the calls start coming. And I always got calls because I went out and did a lot of motivational speaking, and I'd interviewed with the PGA of America, and I just wasn't their choice. It wasn't really the job for me, because it was more corporate. And so I was done. I wasn't going to interview anymore or do anymore. I was just going to ride my brand out, ride off into the sunset, stay in upstate New York, and just that was it. And then I got a call from a friend, and he said, "You need to apply for BallenIsles." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I go, "I don't even know what you're talking." I had no clue what BallenIsles was. And he goes, "You need to apply." And I'm like, "Why?" He goes, I can't really tell you, just apply." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not applying unless you tell me." And so the global director of coaching and teaching for Troon called him and said, "We're interested in Brian, and do you think he would apply?" And so I applied, and then I didn't hear anything, for 6 or 8 weeks. So I thought, well, I got screened out. That's good. Easy choice. Don't have to sweat it out or anything. And I was in the Callaway booth at the PGA show, and I was not going to go to the show, and because there was no reason for me to go. I wasn't presenting, and so I got asked by a friend to present at Bay Hill. So I said, okay, I'll come for a couple days. You got to pay my way, blah blah blah. So when I got there, I was in the Callaway booth, and the director of golf and the head pro came up and said, "Hey, you're Brian Jacobs." And I'm like, "I know," and so everything's pretty funny to me. It's a joke, right? And I go, "And who might you be?" And they said, "Jeff Fitzherbert, Chris Hayes." I'm like, "Man, those names sound really familiar." And then Jeff said, he goes, "I'm the director of golf at BallenIsles, and we're sorry we didn't get in touch with you." He said, "We were just overwhelmed with applications. We had over 400 people apply." He said, "And we wanted to call each of them and screen them out, kind of personally." And so he said, "You're in the top 6, of people to interview." And I'm like, "Oh, great. That's awesome." I go, "Who's my competition?" And they were like, "Well, we can't really say." But I kind of heard who was, um, applying. And so the next morning I met him. We had a great conversation. And so they said, "Well, can you meet us for dinner?" And I said, "No, I already have dinner plans with a friend that I'm not going to break, and they always appreciated that
Yeah.
commitment. And so they called me that next morning and they said, "Will you come down, and we want to bring you to the property while you're still in Florida?" And I said, "I can't." I go, "I have lessons. I'm going to go back on an early flight, and I'm going to go right on the lesson tee." Even though it was January, it was, winter. And so I went home, I did my lessons, and then I went back the following week. And it was really funny when he told me about the candidates that were there. I said, "How long were their interviews?" And they said, "Geez, one guy was here like 30 minutes. He wasn't our choice." And I was there 9 hours. I gave
Wow.
lessons and talked to the
Yeah.
members. And yeah, well, you kind of know I am. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I like people,
Yeah. Fair enough.
and they were just overwhelmed with that. They couldn't believe it. And so at the end of it, I was like, "Look, if you offer me the job, I'm relatively sure, with my wife, I'll talk to her and I'll take a swing, and if not, that's okay too. Like, look, if you want to build a legacy." And I told him in my interview, the 5 other people that you're interviewing are all teach at clubs So you're going to get the same product that you're getting. Now you're going to get one-off lessons, no loyalty, no programming, no nothing. If you want a leader, I ran my own business. I run my own motivational speaking business. I was a school teacher. I know how to encourage people. I know how to maneuver around people. I know how to talk to people, whether it's ghetto or, the stock market, sports, whatever they want to talk. I have a very unique skill set. And so they already knew. They knew when they interviewed me that I was their guy, but they had to go through the process of, and so they called me back first week of February and they said, "Can you start next week?" And I was like,
Yeah, fair enough.
I can't wrap my house up. And, so my wife is still in New York. She didn't come, she's at home working and taking care of the home. And I got a house down here. And I never thought in my wildest dreams I'd be living in Jupiter, Florida, being around. I mean, they're just the wealthiest people, the wealthiest of the wealthiest. I mean,
Yeah.
like I've got NFL student here that just went into the Hall of Fame. I've taught lawyers that you would know who they
Wow.
are and doctors that you would know who they are.
Sounds
And
like a fun place to
so it's
be.
been fun. It's awesome. And the people are just absolutely phenomenal. Like it's
Yeah.
incredible. I get up every day and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I keep pinching myself. And I've been here, let's see, it'll be 9 months, November 3rd. So
Very good. Nice. So the idea
yeah.
of this golf course is, again, a big draw to it is the instruction and the facilities and the stuff you have access to teach with the students as well.
Yeah, there's part of it's that we have a sports complex so we have tennis, so 24 tennis courts. We have 9 pickleball courts. We have a full facility of, PT and salon, and we have, I think, 6 restaurants, 5 merchandise shops, and that's just, throughout the
Yeah, you
property.
never have to leave.
I mean, it's just unbelievable when you walk through too. So it used to be the headquarters of the PGA of America, and that's where they used to have Q School for PGA. And then Jack Nicklaus won the PGA Championship in 1971 on the East Course. So he redid the East Course. They just opened it in 2020. And then there are other 2 golf courses. Reese Jones did one of them, and then a guy named Joe Miller did another one. Extremely prominent architects. They don't skimp on anything. Like it's just first class all the way. They all have their own carts, the
Wow.
members.
Yeah.
And so they drive from their homes to the golf course, and we run almost 200 events there. And so now you worked in the bag room, and if you got slammed at Ridgemont, there might be 150 rounds,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
We do 550 rounds a day, 7 days a week.
I see.
So,
Yeah.
so you're talking about over 100,000 rounds of golf in a calendar year,
Yeah.
plus event, so, and it's just, the vibe is
Well, I
unreal.
feel for that bag staff and those bag boys, but though I imagine they get compensated well for what they're doing.
Well, I got to think, in golf staff, we have a little over 50 people that work in the golf
Well,
operation,
yeah.
between the professionals, the retail, the bag area, bag cart. We have a full-time cart technician. I think as of right now, my staff is pretty transitional. I only have 2 full-time teachers, and then I have another 6 that are sharing between the pro shop and, me. And so it's a pretty good staff to manage. We do full club fitting. So we do club sales. We'll do pretty close to $1 million in club sales this year. It's
Yeah.
astronomical.
Well, that's
Yeah,
quite the facility there. But
crazy.
otherwise, you had mentioned you're taking kind of your brand or your style,
Hmm.
your kind of understanding of the swing and how you like to go about coaching it to
Hmm.
Florida there in Jupiter. What
Hmm.
is that? How would you even describe Brian Jacobs, the brand, in the terms of specifically when you're working with students? Where do you start? What is it about your kind of process that's maybe different, or otherwise just explain it?
Well, I think, I learned very early in my career that ball flight is king or queen. So we look at the ball flight, and most of the professionals that you'll talk to, that's what they'll say. They look at the ball flight. But I also am a functional movement specialist too through Gray Institute. So I look at their body as well and say, like, well, there's 3 drivers in the golf school. There's your feet, your hands, and your eyes. And if something's not moving properly, well, why? What's the pathology? How do we get it to move? And how do we get them to coordinate their hands, in proper sequence? And so I don't use a lot of technology, even though we have it. I don't need it, but I do it for confirmation for them. And then I'm a kinesthetic teacher, which most people aren't. Most people won't touch the golf club. They'll look at the computer and go, look, do this. Here's what we have to change. And then the student's like, well, how do I do it? And all of them understand their bodies. They've had them their whole life, right? I mean, and so if I can get them to change their hand position or how they move their hands, or if I can get them more mobility in their ankles, more mobility in their pelvis. We have some people that can't, move in a proper sequence. And so in transition, when someone's swinging down, there has to be lateral movement, rotation, and then vertical movement, right? And they get it backwards. They go vertical first, which takes the club to the left for a right-hander. Their forearms reverse, the club opens, and it goes that way. So ball flight is king. You sliced it, but that's the end result of a deeper issue, you know?
Yeah.
And so kinesthetically, I start to move them around. We start to maybe look at some numbers. I get them to curve it all different ways and hit it high and hit it low. And they're like, I never knew I could do that. And I'm like, well, you have hands. I mean, so I do a lot of proprioceptive work with people too. I'll have them hit balls with their feet together, maybe their eyes closed, 1 foot in the air. They're like, well, what am I doing this for? Well, I'm seeing how you work in space. And I say, did you play any sports? And they're like, no. Well, I can tell. You have no spatial awareness. You're falling all over the place. And, or you get somebody like I had a 77-year-old guy today from New York City, and I said, you played stickball or something with a stick. He goes, yeah, I played stickball all the time. Well, what would you do if you were going to hit it over the house to the right? Boom, kills it. It's a high push, right? Exactly what he should do. And he goes, well, I don't get it. He goes, but I want my position of my club to be this. I go, dude, it doesn't matter. You're stuck in a pretty world and I'm stuck in a function world.
Well, I like that. Well said. That is I like your level of analysis there, where you're taking it back to the body itself and not just
Mhm.
the result of the swing, not just fixing the swing or making adjustments to the swing, you should say, but instead also accounting for what is happening at the body in terms of that kind of sequencing, but not just sequencing, again, like the feel, almost going back to motor patterns and things that
Just feel work
the way they
patterns.
know
Yeah.
how to create movement and power and their natural sequence, right? So
They also have neuropathy, right? They come in and say it's muscle memory. And I said, I don't know. It's neuropathy. And I said, you have brain memory. Like your brain remembers things. Like if you hit a good shot, you're going to get something called euphoric recall in your brain. You're going to feel it in your hands. It's going to sound unbelievable, and you're going to get a dopamine rush. That's what brings people back to the game of golf, that one shot or two or
yep,
three. So here's the miracle, I said, that you host that golf club with your body and you can swing it is one miracle and not hit yourself, right? That's
yeah,
one. The second miracle is you can hit a little 2-inch round thing and hit it in the air. That's a miracle that you can compress it, cause an environment on the golf ball and make it go up in the air. That's incredible. The next miracle is you could curve it one way or the other and you understand it, how to do that. So when they look at tour players, they go, it should be, like, why can't I hit it like them? And I go, because you don't have the aptitude. You don't have the depth of learning, the skill, and then taking that skill under pressure and performing it. Said, you're a banker. You can
right,
walk into a board
yeah,
meeting and pound everybody, right? And so I say, like, how long did it take you to be good at your job? And they're like, I don't know. I go, 10 years. You're an overnight success in 10 years. I said, that's how long it's going to take you to be proficient at the game of golf.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, I'm 80. And I go, well, what I would do is play closer.
Sure. Yeah. Well said.
You know,
I
have more fun.
I work on, in a similar sense, is what I'm working on with golfers again, because I can't and nor should I be addressing any sort of technical mechanics of the swing, but when it comes down to that, motor patterns is especially a big one, and not only opening up mobility, which everyone knows mobility is important in golf.
Right.
So is strength. Sure. Everyone knows if you want to hit the ball farther, we need strength that we can leverage in the swing, but also how can we create stability at different joints to create the environment to create speed off of, right? So everything has to eventually be taken back up to that standing on 2 feet, standing over a golf ball position, and we need to be able to do it from there. And well,
and I think that people don't understand you're moving in 3 different planes all at the same time. You're moving sagittal, frontal, and transverse all at the same time. So if you have no ankle mobility and your arms go like this all the time, you know, like alligator arms, we call it, when they get in their backswing like this and there's no width, you have no leverage. How will you get power? They go, well, I don't hit it anywhere. How could you? Like, that's not a swing. Well, it is, but it isn't.
Exactly.
And so I'll say to them, and they'll take, it's interesting to me too. And I'm trying to understand in my brain, because I always had loyalty coaching. I had loyal students and they were with me for 3 to 5 years. I would tell them, like, look, to change this pattern, it's going to take 18 to 254 days. You'll probably get it at day 66 where you feel comfortable. But if you don't stay on top of it, you're going to revert back, and it's going to take 18 to 254 days again. So we have to learn it, we have to acquire a skill, and we have to put that skill under pressure. And so when they come in and they hear something, they get the concept that the golf swing is a circle. The ball gets in the way of the circle, and the hole gets in the way of the ball. But if your swing is vertical, the ball's going to go a certain way. And if it's flat or round or horizontal, it'll go a different way. And if it's in between, it'll go a different way. And then they're like, oh my God.
Well said. Yeah.
Like, this is so hard. And I go, yeah, no kidding.
It's similar to,
that's why they hired me and you have 8 people teaching you.
Right. Well, when I have people in here and we're working on, we go beyond the mobility stuff and maybe we're starting to work on the way they're using muscles to do a pattern. So say it's like a hinge pattern, or even say they're rolling over their arm or something like that, is they want to do it a certain way. But what we need to do is get them back to doing it a different way. And it's quite the process to get them to start using muscles to create stability somewhere and mobility somewhere else, and to do those things at the same exact time. And so not only do we need to open up mobility and do these things, but we need to make sure that they're actually getting these things to eventually work together in that right way. So again, when they stand up, that they're not just reverting back to these patterns like you're talking about. And it's quite,
it starts with what we call it most stability, right? So your pelvis is your big rocks, and most people's pelvises literally don't turn. They don't function properly. So when you get somebody and you tilt them, right, like they'll stand vertical. And what I do is I'll tilt them. I'll grab their pelvis and I'll turn them. Their chest goes down.
Right.
Now all of a sudden the club moves a different way. It moves rounder. They don't move it so vertical. They move it around a little bit better, just from posture. And they're like, holy crap, I'm hitting it better. Well, yeah, because the club's moving different. Well, what did you do? I can't tell you.
Sure. Yeah.
But that's your posture. You have to be in that posture. You can't have a straight body with the shaft of the club sitting like at your nose and think that you're going to hit it good. You have to have tilt, and the club has to sit at a certain angle so it can swing, right?
Awesome. Yeah.
And move.
Yeah.
And so
it sounds,
and then your body has to support it. You have to support the movement. And so what you might be going to our fitness area and you're training for wellness, which is awesome, but you have to train for function for golf.
Well said.
So it's a little different.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like a test I'll use in here. We call it like an Ober test, where we're not just looking at length of like the TFL or things like that, but we actually want to know what position is your pelvis in, And is it in a position
Hmm.
that allows for full mobility at the hip?
Right.
Just, full pause, stop there. Biomechanically, bone on bone, is this pelvis rotated, tilted forward, backwards, or is it sitting in a position that we can get full access to that hip action, right? And so that's something
Right.
that we'll retest, we'll work on, we'll do drills to improve specifically. Then we'll retest, can we
Sure.
get the full hip mobility in this position? And if we change that actual orientation there at that pelvis to do it. And if we have,
Right. And that's life too, right? Like you need your pelvis to move, to
oh yeah,
bend over, walk, pick up your
yep,
grandkids,
yeah,
walk up the stairs, walk sideways if you wanted,
yeah, and
you
you
know,
know well enough how violent the actual golf swing is, and you think of that lead hip
brutal.
and the action that has to happen at that hip, and if it's not happening at the hip, then it's going to happen at the knee. And I'm sure
Right.
you've seen plenty of knee injuries and
Mhm.
issues at the knees in some of these golfers. And again, what we
Yeah.
need from that hip can be, I mean, the forces, the newtons, when you get into it, that's happening in these different
Right.
joints. And if you don't have access to it and those forces are coming earlier, you're either going to ditch and you're going to put them somewhere else, right?
Hmm.
And then you have a swing that's not reproducible and it's not efficient, and it's
Hmm.
probably going to have a bad outcome. Or you'll use it because maybe someone is helping you to do it, but then eventually you're just going to get injured, right? If you haven't opened up that
Right.
space
And
to get
that's what
there, right? To be there, to be happy
that's
there.
what I worry about. I don't want people to get injured. Like we at BallenIsles, we just bought into the Gray Institute certification. So it's a 3-year process that our trainers, our golf staff, they're going to all be trained in Gray Institute because we and and we owe it to our students and our people to be well. Anybody that comes to us, we want protocols being done where we're doing it's simple body work. It might be unilateral arm swings, 2 arm swings, lunges in frontal, sagittal, and reverse, transverse, and they're going, "What are you doing?" And I go, "Well, here's what we're going to do." And that to a person, they say, "Oh, I feel active, like alive, like really, I got a little sweat on my back." And I go, "You're activated." And I said, "You coming in here and hitting 27,000 golf balls is counterproductive because you can't move." And I said, "We have tour players that are members at our club." I go, "Watch that guy over there. Look at what he does before he hits balls. That guy goes through a regime of just band stretches and rotational stuff, and he does some speed work, and he does pattern work, and they go, yeah, but that's his job." And I go, that's your job because you're going to get hurt. It's not, to me, it's recreational, yes, but the joy of the recreation is to play good and to play pain free, and to not get up the next morning and call me and go, oh, my back hurts. Well, the exercise is the recovery. So what we did at the beginning, you do after. And you're going to notice a major change in how you feel. And so students are, like I said, I've only been here a short time, but they're starting to buy, my students are really starting to buy into it. We have a true touch right by the one of the outside bays, and I take them over to it. The majority of them, some of them I don't because they can't balance, on a platform. But they're 1 foot up, 1 foot up. They're doing rotation. They're doing up and for T spine. They're learning how to get their eyes up instead of down. And they say, well, my spine, doesn't. I look weird. I look crunched over when I hit it, right? Because you're keeping your head down. That's violent to your neck and your shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to rotate,
Yeah. Yep.
right? And then we have force plates too that we
Awesome.
can measure trace, and we can measure linear movement and how their body weight moves. And to a person that slices it, they move vertical first, and then they'll come in and I'm sure you've heard about it, and I'll love to get your opinion on it. But it's like they say, well, I early extend. And I'm like, awesome. At least you're vertical at some point in your life and swinging,
Sure. Yeah.
Well, what if we just tilt your pelvis a little bit more? Well, why would I do that? Well, because, well, first of all, everybody extends at some point in their golf swing. Some people are more and some people are less, but you have to extend a little bit to be
Right.
vertical,
Yeah.
you know?
Might
And so,
might you say this is kind of similar to a chronic slicer? And for a lot of professionals, their first goal is to try to get these guys to hook one, right? Do anything besides slice one.
sure.
And it's like, okay,
Yeah,
now we
anything.
know you can do it. It's the same thing with early extension.
Right.
It's like, hey, at least some people can't even extend. So to say you're early
Right. At
extending
least you're
is
doing
almost to
it.
say you're hooking it. So good. We just got it. Now we can pull it back a little bit and kind of time it up.
Right. And control it and time it so it's at the right time.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I learned about force and some of the body movements and stuff, and I'm by no means as deep as some guys that you'll interview or some girls that you'll interview. I know enough to get through the day. I mean, there's some people that's all they do all day long, and we're looking at some true 3D models now, some new companies, because there's some people who are out there that say, well, we have 3D, but it really isn't. It's 2D, and then they make a cool cartoon, and twist everybody around, and it's fine. But if you really want true 3D, you have to we just looked at a markerless 3D where you just point camera and it just picks up the points in the body. When you do the assessment on the person, you just have them hold their arm and it measures their bicep for mass, for how heavy they are. And that's how the algorithm calculates how they move and what body weight's supposed to be where when they turn at a certain point. I mean, I'm looking at that thing going, I'm looking at my director of golf. I go, do you understand this? He goes, no. He goes, do you? And I go, I actually do. I go, this is scary, like, and so we're really looking hard at it because we think that it's another service for the members. But at the same time, there's a lot of guys and girls that come in there and they hit balls on their own. And they're looking at TrackMan, they're looking at numbers, but they're forgetting that, how to get their body to move properly. And so, like, I had a lady in the other day, no foot movement, right? I said, how old are you? She said, I'm 80. Did you ever do hula hoop? Oh, I loved it. Hey, we're going to hula hoop with your feet. So we'd get her to rock forward, back, rock forward, rock back, hit it. She hit it 20 yards farther with her driver, which is amazing because she hit it 130 instead of 100 or 110. She just couldn't believe it. And I'm like, well, we can go farther if we can get your eyes to go up. Well, everybody else told me to keep my head down. I go, who? Lawyer, car salesman, hedge fund, banker, or a movement specialist,
Right. Yeah.
a golf professional that teaches professionally. She goes, okay, I get it. And I go, this is the problem.
Sure.
You play with your friends. They want to be golf pros. And because they're good, you think they can teach you, and they can't. They don't know diddly. They just know their game and how they move. And they don't even know that, most of them.
Yeah. Fair enough. What,
Yeah,
tell us more about the eye specifically. If you can get into it a little bit,
sure.
what is it that you're seeing people with their eyes that maybe they've been told otherwise, but that you're trying to work on when it comes to
Well, they're
vision?
mostly down,
Yeah.
right? So when they're down, they get too much side bend, and then they're looking this way. They're under the horizon all the time. And I said, well, yes, you're supposed to get side bend, but it's fractional, right? It's this way and your eyes go up. So whenever we speed train, especially, or function train for more speed or power, we don't train for speed in general. Speed becomes a byproduct of what we're doing, how they're moving, and how they're handling the golf club. And we always try to get all of our speed and our eyes to go high. And so I had a young guy ask me the other day. I had a guy and he was a terrible slicer. So when you're looking at TrackMan, are you familiar with it at all? Or so
Yep.
the path of TrackMan, if it's negative, right, it means it's a slice path. It's out to in, right? He's 15 degrees out to in, right? Downward attack of 10 degrees, 8 degrees, 9 degrees, topping the ball. He was topping the ball because it hurt. And so I said, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to change your aim. And he goes, I don't know what you mean. I go, the aim of the club face is going to be to the right of the target. Your shoulders, your eyes, your toes, your knees, your hips, everything is going to be perpendicular to the club that's aimed to the right. And I want you to hit a home run to right field, and then curve it to the shortstop because he's a baseball guy. Boom. Kills one. His longest shot with his 7-iron was 122 before he hit that. He hit it 160. And he's like, what did I just do? And I said, well, you freed yourself up. We talked about his eyes too. Like you go like this, you know, when you're hitting it, your shoulders are to look like this and your arms are, you know, moving like you're rocking a baby. There's no power. So extension, you know, extending. And so I just said, look, when you swing, I want your eyes to go up. Well, his attack angle started to go positive. And one of the assistants was kind of looking at the numbers and he goes, I don't like that upward attack angle. I go, oh, so you'd rather have him slice it? I don't care if he swings up at it. He hit it good. I don't care. He's happy. And the closer we start moving him to the target, I had him 20 degrees to the right, you know, and he swung at 8, you know, so he still was moving it over the top, but he doesn't realize it.
Yeah, fair enough.
And so he couldn't book an appointment fast enough, you know, so I have him Friday. I'm going to take him out on the course. He says, well, I'm not going to do this on the course. I go, no, you shouldn't. You should just keep doing what you did and play terrible, you know? And he said, he said, how come nobody else ever fixed me? He goes, I went to all my pros back home. And I go, they can't fix you. They don't know how, you know, and they haven't seen everything. They haven't seen what I see. They look at the computer and they see the numbers. They're like, we got to get that number positive. And he's like, great, I'm all in. How do I do it? And they can't, you know, you have to maneuver them to where you want them.
Yeah.
And give them concepts and talk about the circles and how the body moves. And I mean, I love it. The people here are highly driven. They work their butts off if you give them the path and the program. So you're doing program with your students. You're like, here's a benchmark. Here's where you go. Here's where we go. Here's where we go.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Just on the biomechanics and the movement side, right? So whether it's pain or performance, you know, whatever it is that they're coming in with, it's funny. A lot of my patients or clients will come in for golf specific. They think, hey, you know I'm stiff in certain spots. I know I need some help getting through this. And again, we use chiropractic adjustments and things like that, soft tissue. That's about 10% of any given treatment, hour-long session. Right. So the rest is we're on the floor. We're working on breathing, rib cage, pelvis first, diaphragm, getting stability back involved. That central stability, so that you can actually operate, move off of, create more speed off of. But again, stability first, essentially. And then we work on creating mobility, again, where it's needed, whether it's the capsule, the muscles, or again, orientation of the scapula or the pelvis. Where do these things need to be positioned so that we can get optimal movement from the joints that are connecting to it? But
movement for them too. And so that all takes like a week?
Yeah, well,
right.
Yeah. Some are different.
You'll be done in a week.
Yeah. Years of it. Yeah.
I try to tell people this is a lifetime game. It's a lifetime process. Your pathology is your pathology. Your neuropathy is your neuropathy. And no matter what, the first ball that you hit as a golfer, if it's sliced, you're going to be a slicer the rest of your life. You just have to manage the curve and counteract it. And you have to be aware all the time. It's going to creep up. And it's going to creep up at the worst time. It's going to creep up when you're under stress. And so you have to be able to breathe and get your brain right. There's a lot to this game. It's more than just, hey, let's go out and hit the ball and shoot a low score. If that was the case, everybody'd do it. And like I took a guy out today and he just is, this is blowing my mind. He said, I've never heard any of this stuff before. I go, well, your pros never took you on the course. Number one. I said, and number two, this is what coaching is. You're paying me a lot of money to make you great.
Yeah.
And I take it very seriously. And it's fun. Mm-hmm. And I said, but when you're failing, it's my fault, right?
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
All good.
My wife is texting me.
That good. Analogy you used, kind of hitting the ball to right field. My stance for a while, it got tough. I almost look like Giancarlo Stanton. If you're a Yankees guy, that's almost what my foot stance was. I needed anything to get that ball started to the right. That's how closed off.
Yep.
And I was like,
you have to,
I'm Stanton trying to hit one of those sliders away that he can't hit, but that's what I'm doing with the ball, like trying to put that thing in the right field. But
And a lot of people too are worried that they're going to be judged. I go, be judged. I go, the people that you're playing with have so many bags of poop of their own. They don't care what you do.
Right.
They're trying to get through their day. They don't know if you're lined up 100 yards right or not. And if they ask you, tell them, thank you for being observant. Watch my shot. Now, this is why. If you have to
Yeah.
explain it to them. And it's fun. It's fun to watch too, the students, the members in particular, get into these philosophical discussions with each other about teaching and about what the golf swing should be. And it's basically Stevie Wonder teaching Ray
Yeah.
Charles how to play golf, like
Fair
literally.
enough.
And so I kind of go in and I laugh and I go, guys, you're making it too complicated. It's not that hard. Like make a circle, ball gets in the way, hole gets in the way of the ball. If it curves left to right, you got to make it curve right to left. Well, how do I do it? That's the secret. But I can't tell you. You have to pay me.
Very good. Yeah. Well
You
said.
know?
I want
Yeah.
to ask you, when it comes to the students you're
Yeah.
seeing over there, and maybe the students
Hmm.
you were seeing in Rochester, what is there
Hmm.
a big thing? Is it something that you're seeing most common with these golfers? Is it the slice, or is there a reason behind the slice that is the same with everyone, or is it starting to change? Did it used to be a slice, and maybe people are doing different now?
Well, it used to be a slice. I don't see as many slicers as I used to because people read and they watch the internet. The young people, nobody slices it. Everybody hooks it, and it's bad because most of them have had a lot of instruction. They're very aware of, especially if they're really deep into the game and they're good players. So typically, an elite athlete will hook it to begin with. And so that's what I do first is I do a lot of proprioceptive work in an assessment. I take them through a 12 module protocol. It takes about 12 minutes, 15 minutes just to see if they have control of the face, control of their body, what kind of mobility they have. Can they evert, invert? What do their knees look like? What does their pelvis look
Nice.
like? What does their T
Yeah,
spine
you're
look
talking
like?
my
What does their
language.
C spine look
Nice.
like? Yeah. And again, I am not like this genius or expert like you're seeing it every single day, but it's really interesting when you start to look at someone moving, right away. I never had a name for it. I just knew it was bad, when I was early in my career, and I would say, it's got to be their posture because if they can't get into a posture like a static type of thing where they aim the face, align their feet, and their toes, knees, hips, shoulders, and eyes, and how I learned, it's probably going to be bad. And so then I'll look at their posture, and say, wow, you really have a lot of knee bend. And they sit vertically, right? And I said, you look like you're straight up and down to me. And I know you're not on the video, but if you could just get your rear end to go out more and your chest lower, your life would change dramatically. And I tell them like the first 10 to 15 minutes of any practice session that you have needs to be on aim, alignment, posture, not hitting balls. You could hit little teeny tiny shots, but the long way around it, a question was, it's interesting. Anybody that grew up at a club and had instruction and they're 80 has a flat in to out swing, and they can't hit it anywhere now because they can't generate enough force because it's not vertical. So those people were making vertical. And the middle agers, we'll call them like the 55s to 40s. They're slicers typically. And then under 40, they hook.
I see.
I would say would be kind of the
Yeah, yeah.
demographic.
Funny how, yeah, very good. Yeah.
And it's really cool. I'll look at their age and I'll go, what sports did you play? And they go, soccer. I go, that's not a sport.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, fair enough.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, funny. Similar for me. It's a little bit different. I mean, I'm not looking at shot shapes or things like that, but just from the body
Sure.
perspective, for me,
Well, you can tell which way it's going
yeah. Well, exactly. It's
just by looking at if it's vertical, the swing's vertical for sure.
and a lot of it is for me hip and pelvis. So especially like lead side hip internal rotation of these
Mm-hmm.
hips, which is usually the
Yeah,
first to go. It's common in just about everyone, and so
sure, because we sit.
exactly. And you can think of all the issues in terms of posture and the way they're creating rotation around these hips. when
Mhm.
that access isn't there, or they're trying to put so much force into that lead side hip that the brain knows can't and shouldn't be
Can't do it.
taking.
So
So you can just imagine the
it'll
compensations.
freeze it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll stop it,
Yep.
right? And I tell them your brain is made to protect
Exactly.
you. It's made to keep you safe. So if you're not completely warm, you should never warm up with your swing. You should warm up to swing.
Right.
Is what we're trying to preach to our students. Like, look, warming up hitting wedges, that's not warming up. You're not warm. You're not rotational. You're not lateral. You're not transverse. You just hit a bunch of balls and you're like, oh, I did my workout.
Right.
No, you didn't.
It's
You didn't do anything.
that idea. The brain is there to protect you. There's some training protocols where to teach people to jump higher or to get more out of their vertical.
Mhm.
Most of their training is them dropping and landing from boxes or higher
Mhm.
heights. So the training
Yep, I've done that.
is we're just going to step off this box and then
Yep, and
land
just
and absorb the
recoil.
load. And we're
Yep,
going to train that
exactly.
way. And then we retest your vertical and it goes up and you're able to jump higher because your brain has realized, hey, we're safe to jump higher because we've landed from higher. Right. And so
Right.
you unlock all that by doing that, not to mention the actual changes, the cellular changes that are happening from accepting that load and doing this sort of
Sure.
plyometrics at the tendon and the muscle.
No,
But
and even when you look at shoes, right? You'll see someone with a shoe like this that has this kind of sole on it. Those are called shank shoes. It makes everybody go to their toes, right? Why wouldn't we have a flat shoe so that you can evert and invert the proper way? Well, these are cool. I just bought them. I go, I know, but they're bad for you because you have a vertical swing plane to begin with. Like, why don't you work out in your bare feet? Like, I work out. I go to the gym tomorrow morning. I got socks on, and people have asked, like, why don't you wear sneakers? And I said, well, why would I wear sneakers? I go, I want to be in touch with what's going on.
exactly. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you're jumping and everything. I go, I understand that, but it's healthier.
Exactly. Yeah. Well said.
And you're wearing your cool noble, sneakers that your foot flops around in all the
Sure.
time. And I walk barefoot all the time. I'm barefoot in here now. I walk around barefoot as much as I can.
Yeah. Good. Awesome.
Go to the beach, walk barefoot.
Plenty of
right?
that around there.
Get re- well, yeah, there is. But you can, I've read a bunch of stuff on getting ionized better, and
Sure. Yeah.
and so I'm a wellness guy,
Cool. I
right?
like it.
It's not that I won't eat potato chips once in a while or
Sure.
something, but when you start to look at wellness, I talked to a guy today. He's 87 and he plays 3 times a week. And he goes, I just lived a good life. I go, you're a happy guy. You work out, you train, you strength train. That's why you're happy. And he's a Rochester guy too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he worked for Champion Sports. So he was their brand national sales or regional sales manager for New York. So he was telling me when he used to go sit in the Giants, the Yankees they were all Champion Sports.
See. Yeah. Yeah.
So he spent a lot of his time in New York City, hanging out with like real like legend Yankee players like Mickey Mantle. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez. We could use Mickey Mantle right now. It's not looking good.
Well, the Dodgers are, and I'm not following it too close, but I know the Dodgers are like a steamroller.
Yeah. It was never going to be easy. It would have been close. If the Yankees were going to win, it was going to be close, or they were just going to get crushed. It was never Yankees were going to come out of this crushing. But
no, they're
you know,
they're down 3-0, right,
Yep,
or something. Is the final game tonight? What's in New York or is it in LA?
it's in New York for Game 4, so they were down.
I hope they win it.
Yeah, so Yankees are in a position to do something amazing. That's the way I look at it. They're going to win 4 in a row, and it's going to be great.
Yeah. And if they don't, it's they still get a ring, they still get paid.
They'll get paid. Everyone's getting paid.
Nobody will
That's
cry.
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and even like I worked with a lot of NFL guys too, and like it's really interesting when you're talking about speed and power. I was like, these guys never swing a weighted club, but they're faster than fast. So I started asking their trainers, like, what do they do? Well, they jump, they leap, they bound, they push sleds. So I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, we do some of that in here as well, especially towards the end of treatment plans where we're trying to really integrate everything. We need you need to be able to do it fast if you're going to integrate. So be
Yeah.
able to do it bounding, leaping, slamming,
Hmm.
all that stuff to.
Yeah, I like slams. I like throws. I have a really good trainer. It's really funny. I just met her for the first time. She's been training me for 5 years from
Oh,
Brazil.
interesting.
And I got hooked up with her because I had a trainer from Wales. I found um, through a company that I worked with, they had a lady that did a lot of kinesiology and physiology protocols for national programs in England. And so she wanted to work with me to see if maybe I could farm customers in. And then she got out and gave me to this lady who works for the Brazilian Federation. And so she was in Orlando the other night. So I went up to meet her and some other friends. I'd never met her before. And so I'm really super involved in my protocols and my training. And, there's times where I'll do 10 rounds of, kettlebell swings and 10 rounds of slams with a minute in between. And then other times I'll do I don't know, like a plank, alternate knee, shoulder touches. And then I might do bounds with a rod or I might do stability work with one foot against the wall and
Oh
tilted
yeah,
and
cool, nice.
turning. And so she has given me just this unbelievable perspective on fitness and wellness, and that I don't have to do like squats,
Sure, yeah,
or like if you get a push, a pull, a hinge, and a jump or throw, you're good,
exactly. Nice.
and you can get in and out in 45 minutes if you hump it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can do my recovery protocol, and then I'm out of there. And the other guys, and it's not my goal to have big, huge muscles. My goal is to be fast and
It's the
generate
name of the game.
speed and power.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
I
really
have to
cool.
ask you, um,
Sure.
for your coaching career and your kind of just your career as a instructor, what has been something that you've always had to work on? What's kind of been your issue that keeps coming back? Do you have a consistent problem that you tend to have to work on?
Mhm. Yeah, I think a lot of it with me is speed.
Sure. Distance. Yep.
I'm 63,
Looking good.
and I did a speed protocol where I got up around 113, miles per hour, and I did it with implements, right, with stack and some of these other things, but it's very difficult to dedicate myself to that,
Yeah.
because it's boring, number one, and because I just think I can do it without that. So I'm kind of going on this little journey now. I've got a little knee issue where I have two little tears, one in the meniscus and posterior and anterior, just tiny. And so things touch it off, right? Like squats would
Sure.
totally screw
Yep.
me up. So I do like a kickstand, kettlebell, deadlift, and I'm just kind of getting back into I want to do like the deceleration jumps, I call them, like you're
Yep.
talking about. Like
Step
to me,
jumps.
just off the box and down is way better than going past 90 and jumping
Sure.
up.
Yep. Exactly.
Um, and so I went to see the orthopedic. He's a member here
Of
at the
course.
club for the Houston
Mm-hmm.
Astros. And so he said, well, I can give you a shot. It'll get the inflammation out of there and the pain, but it's not going to fix the
Okay.
issue. And I said, well, do you operate? He goes, it doesn't warranty operation. He says, you just got to kind of manage it. So I'm doing it with compression. I kind of know what touches it off. I'm a big fan of hex bar, like trap squat, deadlifts. And I'm big into sled pulls and pushes.
Yeah. Cool.
I like that.
Yeah.
Then I like
Yeah.
throws. I like any kind of slam, throw, rainbows or sides, anything like that. I like. So I kind of look at my own protocols and I say, well, what do I need? I could do a neutral pull up,
Yeah.
I can do
Yeah.
neutral press bench. I can do a goblet squat. I can do a kickstand deadlift, and then I could do some bounds side to side, sled pushes, farmer carries, overhead kettlebell. So I can do a 50 pounder and I can walk almost 50 yards with that thing going back and forth on the turfed area. And people are like looking at me like, how old are you? I go, 63. Holy crap. I go, well, you're on the treadmill for an hour. That's a waste of time. You're cannibalizing your body.
Yeah.
I just did what you did in 8 minutes,
Yeah. People
And
got to appreciate
so,
the role of strength of true strength training. You know,
yeah, and I think anything that's more primitive to me is better.
Checks out.
Like body weight jumps, right? Body
Yep.
weights, just jumping, you know? It doesn't have to be this fancy stuff like a band pull, right? Like if I do band rotations like Palloff press, right?
Yep. Yep.
And do like uh horizontal to horizontal, and then I change the plane,
Perfect.
to horizontal to down, and then I change the plane from high to low and low to high. It's a band. And so my trainer will say, well, just do 3 sets of 10. I go, why don't I just do 30 in a row?
Sure.
And he goes,
Okay.
you can do
Whatever,
whatever you
Brian.
want.
Do
She
what you
goes,
want, man. Put your shoes on.
yeah. Well, it just to me, I go, why do I need to rest? Like, what's the purpose of taking from a band,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like if I was doing, and everything was really high reps, everything's high reps with her
Yeah.
20 or tens, which is
Mhm.
great. Like I was deadlifting 315 for 3 sets of 10
Whoa.
at 62 years old or 61, and then I just said, it's not getting me anywhere.
Yeah. Fair enough.
But it is,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
It's a hinge. So I think that that's my struggle though. So I'm learning more that my speed is really coming from grip pressure. It's coming from having grip
Yep.
strength.
Yeah.
It's coming from retraction, right? Shoulder
Scaps. Yep.
retraction. Yeah. And then like one movement I do is like I'll just hang from a bar and just
Cool. Yep.
retract.
Scaptions.
I don't
Cool.
do a pull up. I just retract
Like it.
and then release. Yes. And just hold your body weight, right? And do 50 reps.
Fair enough. Now,
Can't hurt,
when it comes to translating to the course, if distance or speed's been your issue, um, I just have a question regarding at the course you're at
Yeah.
now. And I
Hmm.
also I want to ask you at Ridgemont back in the day, just because I know it so well.
Hmm.
The best course, the
Yeah.
course that I know the best, just because I drove it every day.
Sure.
Is there one hole you can identify? Again, there's 3 courses at where you're working, but is there
Yeah.
one hole notoriously where you're at that gives you issues, either because of your issue with speed as your thing, or for any other reason? Is
Mhm.
there any certain holes that you go to and it has your number?
Um, I think on the East course, I don't have any issues. You just have to hit it
Yeah, fair
far.
enough.
Like number 18's 490-yard par 4 into the wind, and I'll play it, and I got to hit a driver and a 3 hybrid, because it's always windy. I would say the 7th hole on the South course is probably gives most people the biggest fit, because if I hit driver from the back and I hit it as far as I do, there's a little point where the water comes out, and if I just touch it with a little bit of a draw, it goes in. But I can't hit it to the right because there's also a bunker. So I hit a 3-wood there a lot. So I've kind of maneuvered around that. Um, Other than that, it's mostly game management, and I play all different sets of tees. And then at Ridgemont, the hole that gave me the most trouble was, I got to think here. Probably number 8, believe it or not, that little short par 4 down the hill.
See.
I just learned I could hit driver, but it'd go
Sure. Yeah,
over
you'd roll.
sometimes. So then I just started hitting a hybrid just down to the bottom of the hill or to the top of the hill and not try to hit it on the green, because I'd go right a lot, and down the hill in the trees.
Yeah. Not an exceptional.
What hole gave you problems?
At Ridgemont, oh geez, all of them. I don't know.
No,
Again, not a tough course, not super long.
no. Most people didn't like number 1, but that was like just bunt it down the
Yeah,
middle, and
it's as wide, it's as open as it can get. There's a little stream there.
yeah, or 2 they didn't like, right? Because it was longer.
Which one?
7 was a hard, or 6, 17, 16, 15. 15 was a hard hole
Yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah.
a little around the edge there because if you didn't
over the tree.
get it exactly right, you could never hit driver
Yep.
there.
Yeah, fair
So,
enough.
because it's, yeah, it's kind of, it was a fun layout. I had a lot of fun there for the years I was
Yeah,
there.
it was. They tucked it into a little spot, but they made the most of it, I think, for sure.
Yeah, they did. They used the property as best they could. So my mom worked there when I was a
Oh yeah.
kid. And you know where that practice green
Hmm.
was? That practice green, that was actually
So,
the 17th hole or 16th hole.
really?
Yeah, 16 went this
Oh,
way,
interesting. I gotcha.
17 went out, and
Gotcha.
18 came back.
Yeah.
And so they made that little, they made, I think it was the 16th hole. They kind of crafted that hole to have 18 come back as a par five. And so 18 was a par four when my mom worked there. I was a dishwasher there. So it was kind of weird coming back there and being
I bet.
somewhat
That's
respected,
right.
you know.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. Cool.
Yeah, not very respected, but somewhat.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Well, I think that's all I got for you. There was a lot of really interesting nuggets. What you're doing is really, really cool stuff, and I definitely
Yeah,
I like where you're heading and all the things that you've kind of explored and all
thanks.
that stuff. It's
Yeah,
I think it's the best of the best.
I'd love to have you visit. Come down sometime. And Jupe's a pretty great place to be, and a lot happening,
No
and
doubt.
a lot of wealth,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
a lot of stuff to do
I
here.
bet.
It's like Nashville, only it's they call it the bubble where I live. Palm Beach Gardens and Jupiter is like this bubble of affluence and no real crime, or
Yeah, yeah, I bet. Well, maybe we'll start a Nashville version of that. It'll be the second hub for golf.
yeah, that'd
We
be
got Joe here, which I think he'll be in your neck of the
Joe's
woods
great.
tomorrow or today, tomorrow, later this week.
Oh, Joe is
He's
going
going
to
to be
be up
around.
here.
So,
Oh, no kidding. I'll have to text him. He's a great
yeah,
dude. All the guys that you identified, are
awesome.
awesome. They're great
Yeah,
teachers. Yeah, they're just good people too.
yep. Excited. We
Yeah, really
got
good
some great people
people.
here in Nashville. Um, well, awesome. We'll do this again sometime, and yeah, we'll make something
Yeah,
happen if you're ever in the Nashville area. We'll play around, and
yeah.
I'll show you what I got these days.
Great. I'd love to. Yeah, I'll make it a point in the summer to come because here it's
Oh,
so
I bet.
hot.
Yeah, yeah.
And there it's probably
I
hot
mean,
too,
for
but
me, it could be a Rochester guy. Yeah, everywhere's hot.
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I got used to it. And now, like, today it was like 78, and I'm like, oh, I'm a little
Oh boy,
chilly.
there you go.
And you're like, oh my
You're never
God.
leaving. Yeah,
No, I know.
fair enough.
Thanks, man. I
Of
appreciate it.
course, of course. It was good talking. Thanks again.